so I know the programs all say we're supposed to go till 5. We had no intention of going until 5 o'clock, but I would like the speakers to come up to the front table now in case there are any questions, and we will just pass the microphone back and forth. So while you're sitting down, one thing I'm really interested in is funding for processing, arrangement, and description of collections that are mostly ephemera. And I wondered if you have any sense of whether or not funding for those kinds of projects is easier these days or more difficult, or how you find funding for those things, because everybody needs to process their collections better. Where do you find the money for ephemera processing? Anybody have any thoughts?
So we rely on federal funding and on foundation funding, on donor funding. A few years ago, we did undertake a major initiative to write a grant to NEH for funds to catalog our ephemera collection. We worked very closely with our grants manager. I thought it was a terrific proposal. It was declined. So, but we do have a lot of other federal grants related to photography, manuscript collections, architectural collections. So it was interesting. Maybe we were just ahead of the game.
Anyone else?
So I don't actually have a great answer for this because I feel like we've had to really think about where we spend our time processing collections. So, like for example, the science fiction fanzines has been put on the back burner. Rather in favor of dealing with materials as they come in, because we are very understaffed. The same thing with the Robley Evans, that is also being delayed a bit, mostly because a lot of that material is still under restriction. So there's less of a hurry to get that done. With our student life collection though, we were able to do it as a advanced internship, which we also pay our interns, so it wasn't doing work for free. But that gave someone time in 120 hours to focus on reprocessing our student life collection, to really dial in on the student life material, separating out. We had another collection that came out of it that was on student notes. So there's now a separate student notes collection because the two things were kind of getting lost in each other. But yeah, funding's hard.
We all need more money.
I think it may largely be a question of just sort of being intentional about including ephemera in the larger grants that you're going for. And we can all think about the trends that we've seen. American Revolution stuff is being funded by the NEH right now. I think all of these presentations have shown just how much users want the ephemera as much as the book that's been around forever. I mean, we get these sort of insights. A couple of years ago, African American material could have been funded. Less so now, owing to executive orders. We'll see what happens, in 5 years. But I think the real takeaway is just to make sure that it is put into that collection, put into the materials that you're putting forward. I'd also, say for all of us, or many of us, we're all thinking about Boston's 400th anniversary coming up in 2030. And organizations are already starting to talk together about the way in which the story of Boston is not just told in our, in the Boston Globe, but is told in all the scraps of Boston life. So that might be another great place where we all might want to surface our Boston-related materials and get those cataloged and fully accessible.
You all have great Boston stuff.
And I'll just add, we're always very deeply grateful when a collector and ephemera collectors are so imaginative and collectors are so much more focused than an institution can usually manage to be. We're working with a donor who has spent 40 years assembling an incredible collection of World War II children's ephemera and propaganda, and the collection is coming along with a bequest that will enable us to catalog the collection when we get there.
Are there any
I'd like to ask into that space. As the Ephemera Society, we often visit institutions and are hosted by them to see some of their collections, and they find among us experts who are really would be much to aid. Do you have a systematic way of encouraging and enlisting volunteer materials or people to volunteer to build collections toward their own, with respect to their own expertise?
Question.
To help with your organization?
I think many of us are maybe a little more traditional in the research library mode where we rely on fellows to do that work.
Yeah.
So we just debuted 2 years ago a fellowship called the Stees Fellowship, which is purposely intended at people who are not doing doctoral dissertations or who are not faculty members at an institution. I'm not saying there's a massive amount of money for people in that category, but many of the fellowship programs out there are weighted towards people who are doing advanced academic work. Our Stees Fellowship is for anybody who wants to come and use our collections for any sort of project. So we were hoping church historians, people who are doing family history, folks who just have an interest. I think there are so many people who are interested in history but have not made a profession in it, like you're saying, who have things to offer.
Yes.
So if you check out our website, congregationallibrary.org, and go to fellowships, the Stees Fellowship is one that I would encourage. And we're not the first one to do that. Many organizations have art and artist fellowships where they're trying to get folks who haven't traditionally felt like they could be competitive in applying for the other roads. And selfishly, we gain so much from that. Your point is absolutely the right one. There are people who have amazing expertise out there. But sometimes the fellowship program is helpful for us with a small staff to make sure we can give the right attention at the right time and get the materials out.
So it's very important to make sure that your development team knows what ephemera is, and making sure that they use it in their publications when they're sending out things to members, that they are conveying to our members, to the public, the importance of this series that we. So that's I feel very comfortable that Historic New England has a team that really does know what ephemera is, because we never shut up about it. So that's one way of helping too, and then that we also are able to fund positions within the organization to help us with cataloging the ephemera.
Are there any other questions? Janet?
Mary.
Yes.
Is there a story about how the papers of Thomas Jefferson ended up at the Massachusetts Historical Society?
There is, in fact, when they were originally offered to the Library of Congress, and they were not interested in his personal papers, so they stayed with family, and then late 19th century, I believe, one of the family members, the Coolidges from Manchester, gave us the papers. So we were very fortunate at Library of Congress's refusal to consider the personal.
Yeah.
And it does include, the farm book, the garden book, all the really juicy Thomas Jefferson stuff.
You did good.
Yeah, indeed.
Sorry. I'm going to give you the microphone, okay? So that everyone can hear you. Then I'll take it away.
This is for the person with the MIT archives. I'm interested about the Burgundy Library, which did a stint for about a decade or so at MIT physically. It was actually founded in Connecticut by Bernard Dibner, and it is a very extensive collection on the history of science and technology, especially the medieval times and the Renaissance period, and include a lot of artifacts. Wimscher's electrostatic machine, which was like this huge glass wheels, and also an amazing collection of vintage vacuum tubes and incandescent bulbs, because vacuum tubes came directly out of the incandescent bulb technology. And this was all on display at MIT in a building which is now completely gone. It was a beautiful Art Deco building. It was sad to see it go, but there's a major chunk of the MIT Sloan School of Management there now. It went away about 20 years ago, and my understanding is the collection mostly went to some library out in the West Coast. The Huntington, in fact, yes. But I was never able to determine what happened to the artifacts. I've called the Huntington and contacted them various times, and they just sort of don't acknowledge they even have anything. So what happens when libraries get affiliated, I guess is the question, and then de-affiliate or move on to another collection? This kind of thing doesn't happen very often, but I think it's very significant.
Wait. Yeah.
So I am, the Dibner splitting was like before my time at MIT. I am not aware of anything that went to the archives from that. However, if it was more like artifacts, that is within the collecting area of the MIT Museum. So that would be a place to contact to see if they still have that material. I will look it up, and if you want to come up after this is done, I'll also see if I can find out any more information. Because unfortunately, like I know it's not in the archives, but it may be in the museum.
Wasn't there an auction? Big memories. Rob, did you want to ask something?
I wanted to remark on how welcoming all of your institutions have presented yourselves to researchers. And evidently that's not exactly the history of these things, but now is the present opportunities we have to access your materials. Thank you for emphasizing that and being so forthcoming to us.
Well, we exist to serve.
Amen.
And serve researchers.
Yeah.
That's what we get up in the morning for.
Yeah, us too.
It is. Well, thank you all. On behalf of the Ephemera Society of America, I have to say this has been a real treat for me anyway, and it really did make me want to go back to work, even though I've been happily retired for some time.
I believe I tried to get you to apply for a job.
I know. If I were a member of the audience and hadn't yet visited these institutions, I would forget about stamps and postal history and go visit them right now and the rest of the week. So thank you all for coming.